Running. All right, get closer to the window. Whoa. Whoa. Get a little more light on the subject. A little shorter one today. You got the cleaning lady showing up. We're wrapping up our last full day here in Prague. Tomorrow we'll be flying out to our next location. Stay tuned. Of course, guys, I'm talking about mindset stuff here, but as you likely know, if you don't, I think you do. But if you don't, and even if you do, make sure to stop by bloggingfromparadise.com. It's my site. We offer blog posts. I sell blogging courses and I sell blogging ebooks to help guide you on your blogging journey. And there's one thing to keep in mind, guys. As you know, I'm pretty mindset tips heavy, although I've kind of trended more to practical tips on my blog recently, but definitely with a lot of posts, products, my courses, my ebooks. I really get into mindset because it's really everything. What's going on in here is being reflected back to you all the time. As far as your belief system, lovely mirror effect. But as you dig deeper into your mind, hey, Adil, what's up, brother? Good early evening. Or maybe not early evening, later evening. As you dig deeper into your mind, you will find something that you have to be aware of. And you want to be gentle with yourself as you dig deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into your mind, because you got to do it, guys. This is the whole idea behind mind training. You are unearthing the conscious fear, but more importantly, the unconscious fear that we all harbor that's creating all of the problems in your life. But as you dig deeper, you're going to figure something out, and it's something to keep in mind. And here it is. Egoically, you're not going to like what you see. Some of the time. A lot of the time. And then some of the time. And by that, I mean you're going to face fears that you were previously unaware of. And it's going to feel really uncomfortable from time to time, not endlessly. This is not a lesson in punishment. But it's going to get rough. And that's okay, because the more you trust your intuition to guide you through these difficult periods, these short stretches, the more you really dive into that ick, that muck, you'll be fine. However, most people, most minds, we're all mind anyway, and I've been guilty of this on my journey, when things start to get a little icky, a little uncomfortable, a little unpleasant, where it's kind of like, I'm digging into my mind and I don't like what I see. It's too tough. It's too boring. There's some deep fear there. I started to feel really guilty. I started to feel enraged. I'm just starting to feel grief. And in that moment, egoically, in your mind, I don't like this. I don't like these feelings. Pump the brakes. Stop digging. Stop mind training. Scramble back. Sprint back. Scurry, whatever, back to Distractionville. And you and I know darn well what Distractionville means. Not looking inside of your mind in quiet, in lieu of distracting yourself with the world of form, keeping busy, working a job, let's say raising your family, which is not Distractionville, but doing it mindlessly and robotically and reactively. And that happens a lot. It just happens. I mean, I'm talking across the board, guys, where there's this mindless, reactive, robotic, let me just keep busy enough to where I never have to face all the crap in my mind, and it's not crap, it's fear that's scaring me consciously, but more importantly and more truthfully, unconsciously, to live this life of rush and hurry and filling my schedule and keeping busy. That's the exact point when people turn around, where it's the exact point you have to dig deeper to figure out why in the hell you're running around keeping busy, or with Distractionville, politics, government. These are fear-based structures, guys. Let's not beat around the bush. Let's not get ridiculous. When you distract yourself with fear-based structures, you're proving that you're very, very deeply desiring that world on an unconscious level, maybe even on a conscious level, and that you don't want to look within and free yourself from this nightmare. Because you may not think it's a nightmare, because on a worldly level, you have certain things in form, yet the deeper you dig, you will figure out eventually, if you go there, and it's up to you, that there's really no answers here. There's temporary, fleeting in form, comfort, and some maybe temporary satisfaction and some faint hints of gratitude, but then it becomes more. And like in A Course in Miracles, Jesus says, what is an idol? More. Yeah, you don't really hear that one too much, do you, in the world? Because the world, being ingeniously created by the ego, is all about more, because the more you're looking for more in the outside, the less you're looking into your mind for the real answers. That's your spirit. That's you're eternally loved by God. That's your eternal. And that this world is a really slick magic trick that's in time and space, and that dies, and that, like, when you start understanding, the deeper you dig into your mind, guys, that eternal love and spirit created eternal love and spirit, and that's reality, then you'll start seeing all those layers of misunderstandings, errors, mistakes that have caused you to believe very deeply in the world, which has caused all of your suffering. And when you're getting through those beliefs, as you're forgiving them and feeling them and expressing them, it's just going to feel, for moments, it can feel really intense. And that's the way you want to frame it. Intense. Very intense. To burst out crying, or to feel a fit of rage, and just to have the pillow there, not projecting it, not taking it out on people. But I guarantee you guys, if you're not an enlightened being, it is there, because that's the exact conscious and unconscious stuff which blocks the truth, which keeps you in the illusion. But as you dig, it's going to be there in moments. It's not going to be, you're not going to be there for 10 years living in a state of rage. It's just like, it could be a couple seconds, a couple minutes of just blah. I've experienced these moments. Why do you think I circle the globe and have a backpack and carry-on as my physical possessions, and 1 week's worth of clothing as far as change? Clothing for a week, and then I wash it. So those are my physical possessions. How many fears do you think I had to dig into my mind and feel and express and let go, so that I didn't identify with a home base, with a house, with paying a mortgage, with paying rent, with owning a lot of stuff? You know there's deep fears there, guys, in most cases, and there's a lot of guilt and grief. It's not pure love, because love doesn't ask. Love doesn't attach to anything, because it knows it's not real. Now, it's fine to have the form. I get it. I have some clothes and a few things. My point is, you guys know that I had to dig into my mind and face a lot of fears to live this life, because most of you guys know how afraid you'd be to let it go. Got to be honest with yourself. You'd probably be very afraid. It wouldn't be coming from pure love to let almost all of it go. And you know what I mean. Got to be honest. I have to be honest with you. And I'm a newbie. I'm a young Padawan. I get it. But I'm sharing this with you to be transparent and just to say, like, to live this life, I had to face a lot of deep fears, a lot of primal fears concerning having stuff, owning things, feeling that my security was in that. And then eventually facing the fears where I was attached to that worldly stuff largely and letting it go, and then being where I am now, where I'm purely nomadic. So yeah, it's going to be intense in moments. So you have to realize that's part of the journey. And the more you do, the less resistant you'll be to face those fears. You'll notice maybe in the world, there'll be a lot of minds that live in distractionville. They just keep scheduling everything to the second. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing right with that. It usually indicates a mind terrified to take a deep breath and let go and spend some moments in silence. There's fear driving you when you're coming from a place of tension. Once you're relaxed, you know what happens. It's going to come up. The fears, the anxieties. It has to, because that's what's driving you to schedule every second of your day. Keep acting, keep moving, keep achieving, keep getting more and more. What is an idol? More. More time, more money, more this, more that. Projecting to the future, that's fear. We have to plan. Planning's fear. No? Anytime you project to the future, it's fear. Anytime you're out of the moment, it's fear. Anytime you're in the past, it's fear. Love only exists in the moment. That's the only reality. When you're planning, you block, it's egoic, and you're blocking the holy instant, God's plan for you now, the Holy Spirit's instructions, your intuition's instructions. Trust your gut. And I do it too. I get it. I do it too. Yet, the more I dig into my mind, and I feel these uncomfortable fears, which say, look forward, look back, get ready, regret. And I feel that those uncomfortable feelings, you clear them out. You just understand that the truth is under all that stuff. That's where the peace of mind is. But to get to the peace of mind, you wade through the chaos in your mind. And it's going to feel uncomfortable. And it's a shock to a lot of people on this journey of mind training, because when they're new to it, they're thinking, oh, I've seen these ads, these egoic, worldly, impossible ads, which are so cute, or it's meditate and you'll be so peaceful, and meditation. And the meditation does bring greater peace or mind over the long haul. But if you've never sat in quiet, or you've rarely sat in quiet and meditated, after that first 5 minutes, usually the first few sessions, not always, but you're going to understand why the ego has been goading you not to do this meditating bit for a very long time. All the stuff's going to come up. Boredom, my mind's racing, blah, 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 blah. You'll hear all these voices and you'll have all these uncomfortable feelings. And the question is, do you sit there for the 5 minutes and observe it, or do you run away? Because you're starting to dig into your mind now. Do you run away from that? And you're entitled to. You have free will. Or do you stick around? If you've run away, it's going to keep chasing you. And you'll get busy, and you'll have to take care of this person and take care of that person, and worldly sacrifice and worldly responsibilities. And that's all that higher level stuff that's going to seem so practical in the world. But you'll realize that even as you're doing the practical stuff, because you believe in this world and you believe on that level that this is what you need to do, as you're taking that practical journey, eventually either you decide to live entirely there in fear and survival mode and control, or you start digging into your mind to get into that, there's some peace, which will feel nice just to relax. And then there's some uncomfortable stuff, and it's uncomfortable and it's intense sometimes. The best part about it is when you forgive it and you express it and let it go, that's a little less, or sometimes it feels like a lot less of fear in your mind, and you'll feel more relaxed. And you'll notice how you perceive the world in a more relaxed light. But you got to keep doing it. I've heard of advanced beings who mention the phrase, like the Dalai Lama, talk about I'm pretty sure it's in practicing emotional hygiene. So we're all usually pretty keen on practicing the body hygiene for the body, brushing our teeth, showering, washing the hair. But as far as your mind, as far as your emotions, your feelings, how frequently do you practice the same level of hygiene? Now, if you don't wash the body and practice hygiene, it starts to stink. And it becomes, on a worldly level, quite offensive to others through the senses, the body's senses. If you don't practice emotional hygiene, your mind starts to stink with fear. And it becomes very unattractive to other human beings on the level of mind, because the fear comes out as guilt, grief, rage, a desire to control, a desire to manipulate, a desire to hurt, a desire to separate, a desire to just survive, to live in desperation, to be greedy. It's the stink of fear. And of course, you express these emotions. You're entitled to have them express them, though. Like, get into them and express them, because if you don't express them, you're going to keep making your decisions not by clearing this fear out of your mind, by feeling it, by digging deeper into your mind and feeling the uncomfortable emotions, but you'll make the decisions based on grief and based on guilt. So if you're just caught in this grief, no, you're not caught, but if you have grief in your mind that you're not expressing actively, digging deep into and crying it out or observing it for what it is and letting it go, if you cling to it in your mind and you hold on to it, you'll live in the past, which will make you look backwards. So instead of being in the holy instant, in the present, you'll be spending your life looking back this way. It'll be like me talking to you via this live broadcast on YouTube and Facebook. And if you're clinging to grief in your mind and you're consciously choosing to do that, maybe unconsciously, but you're choosing it. It's not happening to you. You're choosing it. It's like me looking at you, and then when I'm caught up in grief, when I'm clinging to it, it's like I'm just like looking back and thinking about, like, hey, look at me. I'm right in front of you in the moment. And you're like, wait a sec, I got to keep looking back. And I'm not being funny by saying this. Literally, this is what appears to be happening. When you start feeling it in your mind, you'll let it go, and it's uncomfortable, and you really dive into it and forgive it. You'll start turning towards the present, and you'll be more present with people. You won't be making so many decisions with the fear of loss in your mind, with the feeling of loss, because you'll have forgiven it. You'll have let it go. And guilt is the same way. Most family relationships in the world, the ego is so clever and equally insane that it bases those, until you really start to dig into your mind, on guilt. Because love never asks, love only gives. Anything else is fear. And guilt is really that prime driver. Guilt says, I got to do this for this person because our blood appears to be the same. Sacrifice, responsibility, like that, none of that exists in heaven, because heaven is pure love and light. We're all not even beyond it. We don't even know this. All that stuff is egoic. And it's nuts. Because imagine if you grow up with someone who you just don't happen to get along with, and you have different views and visions, and because of the egoic conditioning through guilt, where you feel like you fear that you have to do something solely because of a worldly concept of, well, they're this member of your family. That's nuts. God doesn't want you to punish yourself. The Holy Spirit, when you go deeper into your mind, deals the deck as far as the relationships in this world. Under the family stuff, we're all one mind in God. But you got to start feeling the guilt and forgiving it and letting it go, expressing it and letting it go, to start understanding these truths. As long as you don't go there, you'll be like, no, even though this person, and I grew up in a loving family, so I was blessed, but like if I was in a situation where people were actively beating me and projecting their rage on me, the ego says you have to because you happen to be in the same family. And the Holy Spirit's like, I wouldn't say like that, but it would say, let me deal the deck. You could let them go. They'll have their time. I see good for all. And maybe we'll move you into these other relationships where people aren't beating you and you feel like you have to be. And that beating stuff is just all egoic. Like that's what you eventually have to see, guys. When you listen to the ego, it will instruct you to make insane choices based on guilt and grief, fear, rage. It's nuts. When you listen to your intuition or the Holy Spirit, it knows fun and joy and love and oneness and harmony. And it takes care of everyone because when they listen, when they decide to listen and follow the guidance, because we're all one in God. Yet on that level of form, you got to dig into the fears to move away from that world. It will cause really rough situations, not because it's meant to be that way, but because you're listening to the ego and fear and you're not getting into the source of those really ridiculous, insane voices. Once you get rid of the fear, you feel and express it, you won't sense that ego voice as much and you'll listen to love, which is the intuition. And it will guide you fun, love, joy. And then when stuff does come up in the world and you're clearing out your fears, even though it feels really uncomfortable, you'll begin to, like I've mentioned before in my videos, see that we're all one mind. And those really, what appears to be rough circumstances that arise from time to time, it's your belief system being mirrored back to you. So it's your lesson for forgiveness, even if it's really uncomfortable and you have to squirm. And you only start reaching that level of mind, and I'm kind of like right there, a little bit here and there now, by getting into the discomfort of sitting there and digging into your mind and being like, oh, this doesn't feel too good. And that's normal. That's average. Like it's going to happen. It has to be there as long as you're not enlightened. If you're not beyond it all, if you can't see this world as a pure illusion and you're putting your faith in form and in the world and in fear, there's fear in your mind that's causing you to do that. And some of it's conscious, like you'll see when you're enraged and angry and blaming this person, blaming that person. Sometimes it's easier to see, like, oh, shoot, that's fear projection. Other times it's unconscious, where you're like it's almost like you appear to be some animal. And I'm not saying that in a pejorative, nasty sense, but you'll just be reacting wildly. And your mind is so deeply entrenched in the stink of fear. You're not practicing emotional hygiene that you can't realize that you appear to be, but you're completely doing it to yourself. As in your belief system is causing this. That's how powerful your mind is. That's how powerful everyone's mind is. But you got to dig. And when you dig, you got to keep in mind as you're digging deep that it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to feel unpleasant. It just does. I mean, there's just in moments. And then there's also increased peace of mind. But when you see those ads for meditating, like I'm meditating and you're supposed to be relaxed. When you start meditating, you start training with A Course in Miracles, you'll have the Holy Spirit there to help you, pray, ask for guidance, to look at these emotions, but there's going to be intense stuff. Like last night, and too much tension, and I'm praying and forgiving it and going through my pattern, if you will, ritual. And then by going through that, using the Course principles, the feeling goes away within 10 to 20 seconds, instantly. The ego's like, what did I eat? What did I do? It's going outside. And the more you clear this, you're like, it's not outside, it's me. All those relationship movies, it's not you, it's me. It is. And by being it's me, it's not blaming or saying you're culpable. It's your fault it's just literally, I am this powerful. My mind is this powerful. How liberating is that when you don't think through it egoically? My mind is this freaking powerful that it's creating the intensity of the situation. God created your mind. If you misdirect it, if you misguide it through egoic, listening to the ego and its instructions, however insane, there's going to be chaos. It's like in the Course, Jesus says, misguided miracle impulses. So miracles flow to you through the Holy Spirit's guidance, intuition, Holy Spirit. That's the miracles. Now, the misguided miracle impulses, as Jesus says in the Course, using that same virtually unlimited power to create madness in some really tough situations for yourself. Rather than blaming yourself, think how powerful that when you begin to, your mind is that when you begin to forgive these seemingly batty, really rough circumstances, that you could use it to trust love and listen to love and have fun, to be truly helpful, to co-create and to wake your mind up as you inspire others to wake up their mind. Pretty worthy purpose, right? I mean, to be living, to have fun and to wake up your mind. And then, yeah, we could do the worldly stuff as a cover job. You don't feel like, you see it more of an illusion, but you still kind of believe in it, money and this and that in the world, as you're training your mind. And that just means as you're waking up your mind and you're learning forgiveness and you're training your mind, working the job, taking care of the family. Maybe you're not completely guided by the Holy Spirit through it all. Maybe listen to some ego shots here and there, or you're doing the worldly stuff, but you're starting to see more and more in your mind that that's illusory, and you follow Course principles for guidance in those areas. All the symbols of the world can be used by the Holy Spirit to wake up your mind, and they will be when you train it more. But when you train it and you dig, it's just going to feel kind of icky because we buried so much unconscious gunk, fear, predominantly guilt. And then when you start digging into it and you start feeling it, you're going to be like, holy crap, I'm making so many decisions with my family and friends and money and relationships, all the special relationships of the world, my wife, my husband, my kids. I've been making so many decisions from guilt predominantly. Whoa, it can be it's always eye-opening. I mean, it's never really not in the beginning because you see yourself, you see the mirror of it, you're like, oh my goodness. But instead of scrambling back into the guilt, you feel it and it feels really terrible in moments. It can be pretty intense. And then you clear it and then you make more decisions predominantly from love and less from guilt. And then you'll see how life's getting easier and more fun and more enjoyable and more freeing. And then that convinces you to dig a little deeper into your mind and to get maybe a new layer of guilt and a new layer of whatever. And it's not some endless nightmare. You're going to make all these beautiful discoveries along the way. Don't get it twisted. Don't think along these lines. I'm just saying that from time to time, you'll get into some heavy feelings. Like right now, I know my mind's doing this little sickness thing. It doesn't come from outside of you guys, even though the ego is like, no, it's this, no, it's that, no, I had this. And we'll use maybe traditional worldly methods, if guided that way, that appeal to our mind that we believe in to heal. If we think rest of the body and drinking water and keeping warm, that's okay. It's not saying that, no. That's a go to, no, I have to become enlightened and I'm not going to turn to that. It's like these people you see who try to be breatharians and they starve to death. It's like, that's not the point. If it comes from force and that's the ego too. That's fear. Holy Spirit does not punish. It's love. Love doesn't punish. Eventually you start to realize love doesn't punish. Jesus doesn't punish. God. Love doesn't know what fear is. And you see there's layers of fear and guilt in your mind that's like, oh yeah, fear and love will punish and beat the crap. No. Once you forgive that fear, you feel it and express it regularly, then your divine logic will become really sharp. And you'll really start to get it and you'll start to click. And I just love, obviously the Bible can be a source for some phenomenal demonstrations of love to wake up your mind. Of course, really anything can when you see the love in it. The Holy Spirit uses it as a symbol to wake you up. The most practical manual is the Course in Miracles because it's comes from the first mind that escaped, that left the world. It comes right from his mind. So of course, some of it's going to be to the ego absurdly radical and ridiculous and startling. And a lot of it won't. A lot of it's going to make sense, but some of it's going to, oh my God. And that's only because the fear in your mind that's been drilled in there has been, through guilt primarily, has been drilled in there very, very exquisitely. And you got to strip that away. You got to feel it and express it and get rid of it to see that every word in that book is true, because it's only love and there's no fear in it. Yet in the world, the ego has conditioned you to say that fear is love. And that love is fear. It thinks upside down. And it uses very ingenious. It's used very ingenious. I use that word because it's clever, but it's not real because God didn't create it. And that you start to see too. It's not going to like it when you start seeing that it's not real, and it's going to kick and scream. But the more you get rid of fear, you see that you see it in your mind, but you got to step into it in your mind, guys. So half hour in, the cleaning lady coming in a few, we're straightening things up before we fly out tomorrow evening to our next location. We've loved our time in Prague. You must. Prague, have you been? Kelly and I joke around. People say that. Prague, have you been? You must. You really should, though, guys. If you're a traveler, if you're a world traveler or a traveler, it's worth the trip. And if you're not a traveler, it's worth the trip. Truly one of the world's, as it goes, best cities. So, guys, that's it for today. Stop by bloggingparadise.com. Until next time, enjoy Paradise all.